So Rene, we've been talking about how organizations should work better, how technology can help them become more high-performing organizations. But what I see happening in so many companies is that people have the right intentions, but it fails with the things that we take for granted, basic communications.
Yeah, a lot of things get sort of lost in translation, I think.
Yeah.
We all want the same thing, we all have the good intentions, but somehow, somewhere it gets lost and we end up with something that's wrong.
Yeah. We think we're talking about the same thing, but then we don't. So let's discuss this in a podcast episode. I think it's a good topic for us.
Yeah, let's do it.
The Lead Podcast, a podcast for leaders in engineering, architecture, and development.
So, some examples. Looking at the basic things in software development, right? Coming from certain requirements into implementations. It happens so often that someone has a good idea or plan and tries to communicate that to development teams on how certain or what they are trying to achieve, and then through all forms of communication, sometimes it can be Jira tickets or just conversations.
Yeah,
teams end up building something completely different.
I have this comic in my head of that swing on a tree, and then what the product owner said, and what the developer interpreted, and what the architect built, and all these different types of swings. It's all a swing. It's all on the tree, but it's totally not what was actually intended. And I think we try to do a lot of stuff already with user stories and all types of other things we didn't really solve the problem. And another example that I see a lot is that we talk about the same thing, but we are in different roles. So for example, an architect describes a system and has some bigger idea of, how these components, these bigger things of the systems are actually interconnected with each other. They have to communicate over the internet. And then someone that is more on the implementation level, it's like over the internet, that's never possible, and starts to think up all kinds of other ideas and intentions because it's completely different level of abstraction where we are talking about.
And something that I see happening a lot as well is development teams or engineers who have certain technical issues and then try to explain the importance of this or just try to explain the issue in general to their stakeholders, management, etc. That it has some importance to fix. Let's say technical debt. How can you explain that this technical debt will solve certain things in the future if we spend some time on it now? It's really hard for a lot of engineers to translate that into the language of more business-oriented people.
Yeah, because they also cannot relate. And I think technical debt is already a metaphor of the interest you pay over not fixing certain bugs or things in code. And then still, people that do not have a technical background, have never programmed, they just don't get it, why that is a problem. It works, right? So why should we even care? But on the other hand, there are some of these miscommunications, but at least people have a discussion, right? And that is a good thing.
Well, if you have a discussion, that's a good thing. I also see it happening a lot, especially in the initial example, for example, that your requirements are added to a Jira ticket, and then someone else in a different team is picking up that Jira ticket, right? And then not really... there is not that much communication or challenge back or feedback. So having that feedback cycle is key, or having a conversation where you don't agree with each other. So that is something that is really good to have, but it also requires certain things to be there.
Yeah, I think that we covered that in the previous episodes as well. But I think what I really like that model of Lencioni of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, where it really talks about how can you improve results within the team or a bigger team or an organization, where it always starts with the trust level. You always need to have some form of psychological safety, have a certain trust level to have the guts and the possibility to actually have a discussion and also have a conflict about something. If you don't have trust, you cannot have a conflict because, you will always agree in fear of something that will be held against you. And only if you have that conflict, then you can come to consensus, make your decisions committed, accountable, and then eventually end up to results. But that is not always the case. I totally agree.
No, so that's something that you should work on first as an organization to have that trust, because it delivers a lot of things to you as an organization. If you have this good way of having a conflict in a constructive way, pushing each other to better solutions. But in the end, what I often see happening is that even if this culture is there, people make assumptions and they think, this is clear to me. I can just go here, and they might have the right
intentions.
The right intentions, the right intentions to solve the issues or to implement certain stuff. But with their knowledge that they have, combining with the things that they hear, they go into the direction of stuff that they already know. They often go, they lead to things like confirmation bias. They already, we've seen this before. We can do this in the same way as we solve this other issue, or we could reuse this kind of thing because it sounds similar.
I really agree, and I really like it because these biases. There is this great website, the Decision Lab, and it has a listing of all these biases, and they depict it with nice pictures and so. And it's really nice to see the things that we as humans suffer from, and confirmation bias is one. The other one, and I think maybe even more harmful, is overconfidence bias. It's also proven that if we know less about a certain topic, the less we know, the more we feel confident to make a safe decision about that certain topic. And the more you know, the less you actually realize, the more you realize that you know less. And I think that is really the case also with the technical people that have read one article and think, that is
sounds similar.
Sounds similar. So we have done it, been there, done that. Let's do it.
Yeah, I like that meme of where they say like, when I was a junior developer, I thought I could do these things. Now I'm more senior than I know that a lot of stuff is unknown, so a lot of stuff is more complex, etc. So
So that is also good to understand when having communication. So who are you talking to? Are we actually talking to someone that is really experienced, and the decision or assumption that you get is maybe more or less grounded or proven?
So this discussion goes two ways, right? So maybe I explain something to you, and you say, okay, I understand. I'm gonna fix it. Then there's no conflict or no conversation. I could also check more with you if you really are aligned, right? Instead of you asking questions to me. If you have this assumption of I know how to do this. You also need to verify.
It's also like asking the questions, making the suggestions. And again, I think we also discussed that in previous episodes. There are people that feel a little bit scared or fears about can I actually ask this question, or should I just not do it, and instead of constantly picking. So that fear of embarrassment or fear of feeling inferior, that is also really plays a part in choosing the right communication styles.
Yeah, that's what I see that happening a lot, especially in technology. There's a lot of jargon going around on the table, and sometimes
abbreviations.
Abbreviations, and sometimes half the people in the room don't even know what they mean, but they also don't dare to ask.
No.
And
so they miss out on a lot of important conversation because they just are scared to ask to sound stupid.
Yeah, I always like to ask these stupid questions. Oh, what did this abbreviation again stand for again? And of course, everyone likes to explain that because it's often simple to explain. And you see half the people in the room like, someone asked.
Someone asked. Lucky me. I also now understand. Yeah. So I think we can agree where we started. A lot of things are lost in translations.
Yeah.
And we that leads to wrong decisions, wrong assumptions, and that is because of maybe fear or maybe a trust thing, or maybe just confirmation bias or overconfidence. But I think it's also really, really important. Another thing that happens a lot. So if you have all these things in place, so people are not afraid to ask stuff, you have a lot of psychological safety, people trust each other. What I see a lot happening as well in conversations, and this happens also in our company. We are in a conversation about, I don't know, organizing an event. Mm-hmm. And well, I am a person that likes to think about the broader picture. I always like to think with the end in mind. So I always have these bigger ideas. Oh, well, then we need to have these roughly things in place. So I always start with these why questions. Why are we doing this? And why can we not do that? And how can we do that?
Then someone asks like, what color will the invitation letters be?
Exactly. Like, what color does the straws of the drinks need to be? And I'm like, what? I'm still thinking about the concept of do we do it 1 day or a 2-day event? Or do we bring the partners or do we not bring the partners? And it's like, for me, it's really, really frustrating sometimes that if you are on a higher abstraction level, that someone asks that question of, what color are the chairs or straws or whatever. And but this happens as well in a lot of technical conversations as well.
I think it's especially with engineers. That's something. Engineers are so focused on technology and problem solving that's their bread and butter, and that's what they're good at. But they also, every conversation, even talking about strategy or more long-term, high-level things, they try to drag this to the implementation and technology level, while that's not always capable.
I think that it's really about, on the higher abstraction level, it's more the why questions that are asked. Mm-hmm. And on the lower abstraction levels, it's more the how questions. And there is always this person that asks, okay, great, this strategy on a new financial system, but how do we write ours? And like, what?
We're not there yet.
No, we are not there yet. And on the same thing, on the why and how, but also what I see a lot is process questions or process conversation versus content conversation. So we're first talking about a process on how are we going to do this, how are we going to approach this, and then all of a sudden it dives deep into, again, the content of stuff. Like, but this system is never capable of doing this. Like, but we are not there yet.
Yeah, and I think this often goes wrong because in a lot of meetings I see people with different interests all invited. So not having a clear goal of what are we trying to achieve with this meeting, and do we have the right people in the room for this? Because if you have people who are thinking about strategy, you put them in the same room with a developer that needs to implement certain things, they will not be connected and start thinking about the same thing. So having the right people in the room for the right conversation is key.
Yeah, and I think what ties into that, and maybe already going a little bit into how can you improve your effectiveness in terms of communication, is be aware of what types of people you have in the room. And a great but simple technique is, for example, a stakeholder map. So it really helps when we start an engagement. I always take some time to, and it's not really formal, but it's like maybe on a simple piece of paper, like draw out this stakeholder map where you have two axes, like, okay, what is the power of your stakeholder? What is your interest of the stakeholder? And these 4 quadrants, and then, well, are we actually going to need to keep them informed on the one hand, or do we just really need to manage those people thoroughly? Or, well, these people are nice, good people to have around, good for the coffee, but those people are totally not influential. Maybe they are attending every meeting, but they don't have a real say. And then you can adjust all your communication for that specific person.
Or you could eliminate him from the whole communication because he's not involved.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, like, knowing who are part of your conversation, and also knowing what type of abstraction level these people need to hear. Do they want to talk about the why, or do they need to talk about the how? That is really important also for yourself to remember, okay, I do not need to drift towards one end of the spectrum.
And also, this ties into coming up with the right solution. Are you tailoring to a specific question that someone asked, or is there a question behind that question that this person might not even understand? He has this assumption that a certain solution would solve a certain problem, and he's trying to explain that solution is a good idea. Well, you might need to step back and really find the issue here that might not be the problem that this person is working on. It might be something completely different on a higher level.
And I think that's important, and that already again ties into talk to the people that can actually give an answer to your question. I think that Elon Musk had this nice email a long time ago when I think he joined SpaceX or something, or Tesla, and he said, well, everyone that communicates via a manager to ask a question to a person that you knows the answer, will be fired directly, which I think is a little bit extreme, but
the idea is good. Looking at the intention that he has, like, if you know the person who can solve your problem, go talk to them directly instead of escalating through all kinds of managers or different layers of the organization. To me, this always feels like this game that kids do, right? Where you whisper something to one, and then 20 kids later, they have to repeat the same sentence and something different comes out, right? That's the same when you escalate through all kinds of, or do an escalation through all kinds of managers. Everyone will hear parts of that issue, and all of a sudden it all blew up when it comes back to this person.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when they're directly communicating the people really below, then they say, it was this small thing, and then okay, let's look at it together, and 1 hour later it's solved.
And it also goes with estimations, right? You ask a developer how much time, it is an hour, then 50 layers later of project management, it is suddenly 4 months of work, because of all the extra context that has been added to it.
Yeah, that also ties to stuff that we talked about in previous episodes about your whole organizational structure, right? If you need all these layers of management and communication, then something is probably wrong. So having more direct communication and having your organization set up in such a way that most problems are contained within a certain silo instead of having all that cross department communication solves a lot of things, right? And we talked about team topologies and setting up your conveys low and those kind of things already before.
Yeah, but I think that if you and not every organization does already have a cross department organization, because that is not so easy to solve and set up. But you can start with it by just finding the people maybe in another department. And I think what also really helps is if you try to invest in maybe dashboarding or data dumps or whatever, like at least one source of truth when it comes to information. So are we actually looking at the same information? I can come up with all kinds of examples where we have a misconception of someone that says, well, something never works. And then all of a sudden, if you really look at the data, well, it has happened twice over the last year or something.
Yeah, so having that data, even in organizations where you have all these different layers and escalation through different layers, having actual data might make it more clear that what certain issues are, instead of, well, it's not working, we're blocked in everything that we do. Bringing it back with actual data, like, see, we tried this 100 times and 95 times it failed.
And it's a completely different topic, but then we talked about SRE in previous episodes as well. And I think that SRE practices with the service level objectives, where you really define, okay, in 95% of the cases, it should go the right way. That is an agreement between certain types of people within your organization. And that can also really help, like first looking at the same data, but also have a clear agreement on what do we think then is right or wrong.
But it starts off with what is the actual service that's being provided, but because that's often also unclear between these different departments, for example. But we're drifting a bit to like organizational setup and those kind of things. Again, I want to lead back a bit to communications and the actual communications and things that go wrong there. Even if two people are talking to each other, there's often a lot of miscommunication and things that go lost in translation there. And even in small communications, two persons talking to each other. So let's dive a bit more into those examples and what could be things there. The one thing is, we already talked about the abstraction, but there's also the different styles of how you communicate.
So I once did a good course, and I actually learned there were 4 styles of communication. So one is really setting arguments, where you say, I believe we should do this because of reason X, Y, Z. But the point is that if I have very strong arguments, and my partner in conversation also has really strong arguments, it will be constant fighting. I have better arguments. No, my arguments are much better. So then you need to have a little bit of style flexibility on, okay, maybe this time you should not argument, but maybe you should start asking some questions, building a bridge. Okay, you have good arguments. How can I actually near you a little bit, and maybe then also bring in a little bit of my own stuff, so really bridging the gap. Or maybe have an inspirational talk on, imagine that we are in a situation where this and that, and then people started thinking differently. Or really put your foot on the ground and say, no, we are going to do this, because otherwise something bad will happen, and this is what I will now decide, depending on the relation that you maybe have. So there's different styles, and you should recognize the styles that you apply, and also the styles of another person, in order to have a really good communication, and also influence your partner towards the thing that you want.
Because with those arguments, both of you can be right.
Of course, yes.
You both have valuable arguments, but who is going to decide which argument is more important to the other? And again, abstraction, but there's also, what I often see is that people are just wired differently. We talked about different things like insights or DISC model, like how people, where they try to focus on. Some people are more focused on actual results. Some are more focused on impact on people, for example. So knowing...
Some people are really focused on following the steps of the process as described. They are really keen on that.
Yeah, so that's also where I see a lot of clashes between people, where some people are really focused on following the process and the steps that we decided we should do, and some people, well, they are more focused on the end result. They say, well, if we skip these 5 steps, then we're there faster, so let's do that. It's really hard to communicate between those type of people if they don't know about these different styles of communication. So having some knowledge about that in your workforce, within your employees,
I think that is crucial to understand, and also, and I think that is a skill that not many of the people that I know, including myself sometimes, does not really have. That is deep listening. Mm-hmm. I think that is a terrific skill to have, and some people are master at it, but it's really, really hard. And deep listening is really not already phrasing your own answer or your next argument or whatever you are thinking about, but really listen and feel and experience what other people say. Instead of judging about it or have a counter argument or your ego talking. And that is, it sounds simple, but it's so extremely difficult. But I think if you have that skill, you can make any conversation work. Yeah,
but some tips that can help in that is really trying to see the side of this person that is trying to explain it. They have their arguments and they are trying to explain why their way is a very good way. And I think deep listening is also trying to understand, like, oh, where are they coming from? How could he think this is a good idea? And when you try to think about those things in your head instead of, if we would do this differently, it would be faster, or the negative way. I think that really helps.
But that is not always the case, right? We as Dutchies, we have a way of doing, but that is not always working, especially if you're in an international environment.
No, and I think that is happening more and more with organizations being cross-cultural, multilingual. You can have these ideas of the DISC profile and different conversation styles, but if you're looking at cross-cultural, then you have far more things to think about, like figure of speech, or just talking about a certain context versus a really high context versus low context. That's so different per culture that you might think this is really, really clear to me, and then the other person is completely lost in what you're saying. Yeah,
completely lost, or you think, oh well, this person totally agree with me. It was a great conversation, and then you find out that the people really, really disliked your way of doing, but they never said it, and that is exactly the type of thing that you can encounter in different cultures.
It's also a very Dutch thing, like, oh yeah, they never said that I was wrong. That's what we expect as Dutchies, but that's not how other cultures work. They have a certain maybe a hierarchy or stuff that.
Yeah, or they say it, but not with words, but between the lines, or by using other phrases, and you need to understand a lot of the language and the metaphors that they use. That you think, there is something. There's something not really, really happening. But I think there is a great book about that.
Yeah, the culture map is, I think it's quite famous. A lot of people, if you're working in an international organization, this is something that you need to check out, I think. And
we are already getting in time, but do we need to cover sync and async communication?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. I was like, having a conversation face to face, that sounds easy. Maybe with video it's a bit harder, and then asynchronously sending messages to each other. Sending emails, people often add some context, or they have some but then you go to WhatsApp or these small messages with only a number of characters that you write on your phone. So much context is lost that this is the hell of communication.
How many WhatsApp groups have been blown up by a very funny meant remark, and then the complete group went berserk because like, what are you saying? And then a lot of phone calls need to be made to actually repair the damage a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I when working with teams, I try to. Of course, we have different channels where we communicate, and sometimes you have this fast messaging way, and you also have your Slack or Teams for more asynchronous communication. But try to use the right tool for the right conversation. Don't go into some strategic directions over emails or text messages. I use an actual face-to-face meeting to do these kind of things. Take a whiteboard where you can really see each other and have direct feedback. We started with that you want to see how people respond and have a certain feedback cycle on your ideas. You don't have that with asynchronous communication. Yeah, you see it because people respond in a very weird manner that you didn't expect.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think it is maybe something for another episode about doing async communication, things like pull requests. Now you're communicating in those. There's a lot of stuff happening in asynchronous communication.
So let's not dive too deep in that, and maybe we should just wrap it up already a little bit. Where we started on lost in translation, we covered quite a number of things, and I think that one of the things that I would like you to take away as a listener is if you experience miscommunication, I think invest in some courses on communication. Send people to a training where they actually learn to listen, where they actually learn to have different styles of communication that they can use in a company. Yeah,
I agree with that. But next to that, even if you don't have the styles yet, we talked about these fears and the psychological safety. Having arguments and discussions with people, are we really on the same line? Verifying again, checking again. If your culture allows that, then it's really solving a lot of problems for you. You can talk about different things, but if you keep verifying, then you understand that there is miscommunication, and that's the thing. If you know there's miscommunication, then you can slowly solve it, right?
And I think just be aware of that abstraction ladder. Are we still talking about the same abstraction? Are we talking about the why, or about the how, or are we mixing it? Are we talking process, or are we talking content? And really try to separate that, or at least be aware of that happens.
Yeah, I'll try to flag it like, okay, let's do the process first and then the content, or the other way around, but at least that everyone is on the same page of where we are in the whole abstraction conversation.
I think that we have a lot of ground covered already.
Yeah.
So maybe, let us know what you think. What are your ways? What do you encounter? And also let us know what you think about these episodes.
If you have some examples on communication that went wrong in your organization, always good to hear.
Always happy to hear it.
Okay, thanks for listening. Hopefully you'll listen again for the next episode in 2 weeks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Lead Podcast, a podcast for leaders in engineering, architecture, and development.